Good morning, welcome back to the Real Tree Guy channel, welcome back to another video. Today we've got no work, we're going to have a little chat about myself, my career, and Luke from Armspace.
What up?
And then we've got some of our daily use kit and just chatting about the industry. So we met at Merriswood.
Yeah.
It's been about 10 years now.
It's 10 years.
About 10
I
years.
thought, I was going to say it's been 5 since I've started subbing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So yeah, well, college would have been 15, 16.
Yeah.
So I'm 26 and you're
26.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
So yeah,
Quick
it's
maths
about 10 years since we met. We both did the same level 3 extended diploma. I didn't complete it. Luke
I
did.
bottled it, didn't you? Skipped the second year.
So before college, did you always know you wanted to be a tree surgeon?
No, I don't know what happened there, because I think I must have I'd done like a week work experience at school doing it.
What with the local tree surgeon?
With a local tree surgeon. Like he lived down my road, so I just worked with them. And then when I finished school, so I just want to work.
Yeah.
So then I just went and done it.
Yeah.
And then now here I am 10 years later, like,
Yeah.
can't get out, I'm
See,
stuck.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was terrible at school. But I've always been quite outdoorsy and quite hands-on. And when it come to school, we had like not like an assistant, but someone that like kind of it was like a careers advisor, yeah, who would like come around, ask all the people and the naughty students who didn't really know what they wanted to do, what they wanted to do, and try and advise them on things they're good at and what they should do. And most of my tutors or my teachers would tell me, don't bother going to GCSEs. Like, all of my predicted grades were like U's, like D's, like literally don't even bother turning up. Other than this one tutor, which was the careers advisor, he said, you know, you could find something. So both of my cousins are quite good tree surgeons, and I did a day or two with them it was a month or two before my GCSEs, and I thought that was pretty cool. Just climbing around trees with chainsaws all day. I mean, I was just dragging crash, but I was like, it looked pretty cool. They'd already been doing it 4 or 5 years at that point, so really well into their careers. And so my 2 applications was one to Merriswood and one to the Royal Marine Commandos. So if I didn't get my GCSEs, I could have done maths and English in the Commandos. And if I didn't get my GCSEs and I wanted to be a tree surgeon, I could have done my level 2. But here in the UK, you get 2-3 years after school of education is free.
Yeah.
So you basically get the higher qualification done. You can get into the industry before university and things like that.
Still do the maths and English.
I could, but I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
And I really hated maths and English.
Yeah, I don't think many people like
that. I thought, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it something I really wanted to do, and I really wanted to be in the army. But I got my maths and English, and out of nowhere I just become quite motivated into being at school and done like extra classes, extra after work stuff, and yeah.
Start to feel smart.
No. So I got into Merriswood and I got accepted, all flat, the required grades to get in. So I joined, and yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah.
So I done my first year, and we done in the first year you get your basic 4, don't you? You get all 4 of your basic qualifications.
They offer it.
Yeah. So they offer it, and it's at a discounted rate to what you'll find outside in the real world. But you get your chainsaw maintenance and cross-cutting. You'll know the CSs, I'm sure. But
yeah.
so you got your chainsaw maintenance and cross-cutting. Then straight to climbing and area rescue, or is it small tree felling up to 240 mil? 380. There we go. And then you do your climbing and area rescue, and then you do your chainsaw industry. And I done all 3 bar the chainsaw industry.
Yeah, I didn't do chainsaw industry the first year out.
There we go. But then in college they said, no, don't worry, we'll do it next year. And I've never had much money growing up, so I wasn't very confident with the saw at the time, and I thought I should probably save my mum a few quid and just wait until I am confident in the next year. Was that the same feeling to you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, I think what were they, like 150 quid at the time?
I can't
Per course was like a little over 100.
Yeah, it wasn't nowhere near as much as you pay now.
Now it's like 10 times as much. It's mental.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we come into the second year, and
wouldn't want to get into
They,
the second year where
they decided, actually, we're not doing a chainsaw tree, and I really wanted to be quite hands-on. I, at that point, still hadn't ever worked for a tree surgeon.
you know, no, I've done like, so literally when I finished school, like the day after I finished school, it was straight to work with tree surgeon.
Yeah, I was working. I started work at Starbucks, and that was my time at Mariswood. I don't know if you remember the big bags. Oh no, the first year we weren't together.
No, first year we weren't in the same club, like group sort of thing.
So in the first year, I would work at Starbucks, and I would bring in, because like they have to chuck all the food out, but it's still good for like 2 days. So I'd bring in this huge bag of like Starbucks, like sweets and like cakes. But yeah, still haven't worked as a tree surgeon.
Oh.
And then towards the end of my first year, I joined a local tree surgeon, man in the van, chipper, just me and him, and then he had another grounds guy. So yeah, we just got a little bit of experience. And you said you were being a tree surgeon as you should be.
Yeah.
Throughout. Yeah. Because they had the work experience thing, but you had to do work experience as a part of your course.
Yeah.
Didn't get any of that signed off.
Yeah, but I was called. I think at the end of the second year they did the work experience,
right.
And the actual tutors were claiming that my work experience was a lie.
Right.
Because after in the second year I didn't enjoy turning up.
Yeah.
Because I just want to go to work now. And then the report for the work experience was saying, oh, he's always on time, he's always up, he's always keen to do it. And then they're like, no. So they marked me down on it because they didn't believe the boss.
When we were in college, because I joined in the second year and quite a lot of people left straight away. So they merged both classes together and just made one second year class. And I remember there was a calf down the bottom of Mariswood, and Luke decided to get a bit of breakfast. And he come into the class before the class had started. Nobody was there.
Yep.
So he left and then came back. Everybody sat in the class. Class has just started.
No, I knew we just started because I came in with my bacon roll to start the day, come in, and everyone's walking out to go to a different room, and everyone goes, "We can't have that now. It's like it's time now for lesson." No.
Yeah. It was still, I think it was very structured as if it was school, like straight from college, which I definitely don't think is very helpful. But yeah, moving on. I left, joined a really big company, and it was just, I think they had like 7, 8, just mostly local councils, and then I did a lot of work in London with the councils and doing contract work, parks works, highways, street trees mostly for 2 or so years, and then you stayed to finish your level 2, level 3.
Yeah.
And then from your level 3,
just went and stayed working with the company I worked with through the whole time.
How long was it? That was until you went self-employed, or?
No, because I had a wobbly spell.
Yeah.
I'd call it a wobbly spell.
Right.
Where I was just like, I've had enough of this job.
Elaborate.
So I'd done 4 or 5 years working with that same company, and then I was like, I've had enough of this place. Like the people were getting on my nerves. So I was just like, no, I need a change. So then I went and worked for another company. Was there for like a month or 2, and then just didn't really like the place. So I was like, okay, no. And then I thought, you know what, I'll go and do landscaping just to try it. And I tried landscaping for 6 months. And for 6 months, I enjoyed it.
I think what a regular recurring thing in the industry, for me anyway, and I know with the way your career went, it's probably pretty similar, is I quite enjoyed progression and knowing that there was something else for me to do. I didn't really care about being the most qualified, I didn't really care about earning the most money, I just liked lots of responsibility and feeling uncomfortable often. And I felt when I worked for this big company for 2 or 3 years where I used to work in Ripley when I was with that side of the company, I wanted to be better than my team leader, I wanted to be better than that guy who always got the private work while I was doing the street trees, I wanted to stay longer to be better, and I just become obsessed with tree work. But as soon as I started to feel that it got a bit repetitive and I was just getting sent to the same areas, doing the same work, I couldn't really get any better because I wasn't getting proper reductions, deadwoods, big dodgy trees. There wasn't any progression on that side of the company for me. So I then left that section and I went over to their Dorking department, and from there I was able to still do some street work, but it was a lot more parks and highways where you had actual things to dodge.
But I think the thing with those sort of like your scale company, my scale company was nowhere big as the one that you work for, but you're very much pushed into the place that you're going to make the most money for that company. Like you're going to be, if you can do fells really quickly, you're doing fells every day of the week. If you can do nice reductions, you're doing that. So you're not necessarily pushed into doing fells quickly.
And I think that's where you get like both sides of, I worked for like a big commercial company, and you've worked for almost only small man, van, small team sort of companies, back garden, domestic stuff.
Yeah, I mean the first one I worked for, they were, I think they had like six trucks. Sort of thing.
Oh, okay, so it's still a bit.
It was still big, but they're not like, they didn't have like multiple branches.
I feel like when you join tree work, you've kind of got two avenues. None are wrong. Join a really big company or a really small company. For me, I felt I worked for a small man in a van, but because like a small man in a van's main focus is to just purely earn money, and having their brand new trainee get up this real fiddly reduction in do something that they could do in 20 minutes, half an hour, with no questions asked, and cleaned up, instead of chucking you up there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, asking questions, getting things wrong, readjust. It just didn't quite make sense for me to take that avenue just so early. But it still works, because in a small company you get more of a personal touch on how to do things properly, whereas in a large company you're able to make mistakes, way more, but you've got way more opportunities, way more people to be around with different climbing techniques. So I don't think there's a wrong way to do it, but it all just depends on how willing the person in the company that is sort of your next in command, or the people around you, are to share information. And I definitely didn't get any information from most of the people I worked with until I'd kind of become a relatively good in their eyes, and thereon you'd get like the odd thing, and I don't think it was most people would actually come out to you, at least past college, would be like, oh, why don't you try it like this, or why don't you try and do that, or why don't you think about this way of doing things. It would just be, I'd noticed someone doing something, like the way they'd stack things, how they'd take a break in the tree and let the groundsman work.
You learn a lot from watching.
But I think it takes you a certain amount of time in the industry before your mind works. Like, I'll ask questions still today, but because I have such a massive, broad, general idea of what's going on, I can pick up on when someone's doing something that I probably wouldn't have thought about doing. A lot easier than when we started.
100%. So, I mean, I learn a lot of stuff now from like competitions or watching a few bits on social media.
And I think that's where sort of the next stage, before we carry on with our careers a little bit, social media, mostly YouTube, was probably the most knowledge that I've ever learned in tree work, I would say.
I never watched tree work videos.
In YouTube, for me, people like August Honecky, Reg Coates, Climbing Arborist, there's loads, but I was so obsessed with watching people do, like, because I was just doing street tree pollards every day for years. I was just doing like just mundane tasks, and I just found it so amazing that someone removes trees every day, reduces trees every day, has big kit on site every day, and I was like, this is really cool. So I just become obsessed with it, and I think I've learned a good 50% of what I know from social media, and almost, I'd probably say a good 80% of my rigging and crane knowledge comes from social media. And that's why I think it definitely takes a while of you being in the industry again before you can kind of see these things as lessons rather than just entertainment. But I do think social media, in terms of knowledge, whether it's wrong or right, is probably just as big, if not bigger, than courses. To a certain extent. I think certain courses, you know, like your basic 4, and then when you're doing specialised things like rigging, large tree felling, I know they do some crane tree removal courses now. Things like that are very, you need to have it. It's not like, it's like a basic standard of work. Like, if you want to be a professional and you want to advise your customers, correctly or your trainees correctly, you need to have that knowledge. I don't think it's totally necessary. I do think coming into the industry, you don't have to purely go to college or have a sort of an educational background before you become a tree surgeon. I definitely think there is routes to just starting as like a guy who's going to drag branches. As long as you've got that hard work, motivation, self-disciplined, you turn up on time, you're happy to stay late, you're happy to do an extra job. Basically, as long as you're obsessed with doing the work because you want to be better, even whether it's a big company, small company, man in a van, you're going to find progression there.
Yeah.
And that's where I think social media takes over, because you don't have to fork out all the money, it's free.
Yeah.
You don't have to fork out all the money.
Right, stop it. I need to go for a pee.
Yeah, take a break.
Take 5.
I think, just to cut back a little bit, routes into the industry, I don't think you have to go the academic route. I think really what people want to do, what I want to see, we've got trainee Elliot, on the channel, and he just wants to be a tree surgeon. And because he turns up every day on time, he's happy to stay late, he doesn't care what the work is, I'm more inclined to realise that and give him the opportunity to do things, whether it's just hedge trimming, to get fast at the stuff that he's going to really be helpful at, to, you saw on the channel where he got up and climbed a tree. Things like that, he uses a chainsaw almost every day, always using kit, he's self-motivated and he knows how the flow of things happen. So it's quite easy to forget that you've got like a good member of staff like that, or even just a good trainee, and give them the opportunity, because like you were saying, you fit into a place where someone's making money. And whether you're in a big company where you're just a 1 or a 0, or a small man in a van team where you are just a guy who makes his life easier, as long as you're pushing to do better, pushing to be on time, be early, load up the van for him, and making sure that you're still letting that person know, right, can you teach me this? Can I learn this? Can I do this? And watching social media, and then sort of relaying that back with your employer or your team leader, and seeing they're taking their ideas on things. I think you can progress in the industry pretty far with no qualifications before the person then decides, actually, I'd like to invest in you and not only make you a member of the team permanently, but also a vital member of the team, being qualified, slowly becoming a team leader, first climber, and then going out and doing your own thing, or being a major player in that company.
Yeah.
What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree and disagree at the same time.
Yeah.
Only because, starting off, I would say yes. Like, obviously, you need a company that's going to give you an opportunity to just learn and try stuff, make mistakes. You're going to put stones for a chipper, you're going to put ropes for chippers, like, it's just going to happen. But in terms of academically, you can either just be a tree surgeon and just cut trees.
Yeah.
But the academic side of things,
You definitely excel to your career.
yeah,
for sure.
it shows you, tells you why you're actually doing what you're doing. And like,
for sure. Like I was saying before as well, I think it helps you advise customers, whether that's Doris's back garden and her shrubs,
Yeah.
or a potential client. You do a lot of surveying and things like that, like more academic tree work, I'd say.
Yeah.
You're able to advise people and have that knowledge of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
I think is also really important, but not quite in the early stages.
No.
So I think you can definitely get competent in what you're doing before you have to. I do think it's a necessity to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, whether it's right or wrong. I feel like you should still have that knowledge of what it is you're doing, what the outcome of the tree is, bad pruning practices, good pruning practices. There's such a broad thing that comes with tree work, and I feel like the qualifications kind of condense that into like a quicker knowledge than you will learn slowly from people over time. Like I've definitely got probably a good 20% of my knowledge from just word of mouth. Maybe a good 60% from actual courses, and then a small maybe 20% of like species specific stuff from people, again from people or social media. It's a bit of a good broad mix. But I don't think you have to do the academic stuff for a while.
No.
But the quicker you do it, the better.
Yeah.
In the UK,
it depends. If you just want to turn up and just be a grunt, like just cut stuff, you don't.
You can make a good living for sure. But I think before we carry on with our careers, what you've got to think about is kind of have a career path that you'd like to do and where you'd like to get to, and realise when you're getting there what the next stage is. Because tree work is pretty cool and it's fun, but it does definitely become quite cumbersome and repetitive quite quickly. Like, whether you're at this, I'm at an amazing company, Blue Sky, you're a subcontractor, and whether you're doing big kit stuff like I do almost every day, or you're doing technical stuff like Luke does almost every day, or even the small back garden stuff. When you get to what you see from like a starting point, where you've never done tree work, you'll look at our careers very differently. You look at those both as like potential end game goals, but then we're already thinking of, right, what should we do? Luke's very happy or really wants to broaden his skills and his knowledge, whereas I just want to be better with machineries, more competent, and then progress my career from there. So that's why I started with social media, because that's kind of the next stage for me. So I do think there's a time and a place for it. It's just kind of where it fits in your plan. So that's some food for thought. Yeah. So we got up to, I spent a good 4 or 5 years at one big company. You spent 4 and a bit years at a relatively big company, and then from there on, where did you go?
Well, that was my spiral point where I fell out of the industry.
Yeah, because so you did some landscaping.
Yeah, done some landscaping in 6 months, and then I was like, I enjoyed it because I was learning something new, and it was different, it was interesting. And then after 6 months, I got annoyed and had enough of digging holes in the rain and like swimming in puddles and mud and all that. So I said no.
So you decided to get back into climbing and
I was like, if I get back into tree work, I'm doing it self-employed, because in my opinion, you can work for one company your whole career, no problem, no judgment, whatever. But you're only going to learn the one way that company does it. So it's like,
I think it's really tough to find a good company that has so much knowledge on more than what they do that you're still going to learn.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got lucky with the company I joined, because the guy I work for, Jules, the boss man, he is so knowledgeable about everything. Like he's done stupid amounts of courses as well, but he spent 25 years building his business to the stage you guys see it at on a daily basis. His knowledge of the machines, the kits, the cuts, when it's time to be dodgy, when it's time to be safe, that I'm still learning from him on a daily basis. But if you don't get lucky, which, sorry about that, you don't always, it's very rare to find a company like I found. And I wouldn't say it's easier being self-employed, but you pick and choose where you want to be around. You get into one company and go, this guy knows a lot, I'm going to learn a lot from him, I enjoy working with him or her, and that will be a person you keep a hold of. And then the next person, they just want to get the job done and go home. Not too much for me. It might be, you might just be happy to earn some money and just go home and be at home, but I feel like to be a really good tree surgeon, or an arborist, whatever you want to call us, you just have to be around people that excel you, and you really have to be obsessed with the industry.
Yeah. I mean, it's only within, I would say with me being self-employed the last 5 years that I've actually become more interested in doing the job. Yeah. Like when I was at that other company, like before, it was like, I'm just doing it because I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
But then since being self-employed, it's like, I've found the passion for doing it now.
Exactly.
Because it's like, people want you to come in, so you feel more worthwhile coming in to help. You're not just like a number at a big, like real big company.
And that's exactly how I felt. I felt for the 5 years I really enjoyed it, but it was very often I felt, you just get up and go to another place and do the same thing. Not the same thing, it could be a different thing, could start working in parks, gardens, but you feel like a bit of a number. Where you find yourself, whether you find yourself a company or companies, you feel appreciated and you feel motivated again to do the work. So it's fine to feel a bit of a plateau in your career as long as you can acknowledge that pretty quickly, and it's not often that you'll get that plateau or get a bit stuck and feel like, no more, I'm done, I don't want to do it. But if you do, it probably just means that you need a new challenge, another company.
But I also find that is also somewhat like my thinking was now, looking back, is like I was young, like 18, 19, so I'm like, oh, this is alright.
Exactly,
like, you've got that teenage mentality.
You definitely get stuck and think, well, it's just a bit boring, or I just can't really be bothered to do it, like you say, you just get a bit like, I just want to go and do stuff I actually want to do. You're doing this every day.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy it every day, I feel like for me, you've got until about 40 before whatever you're doing is probably the last thing you're going to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you just do tree work and you just hack and slash, turn up, make some noise, clean up, go home in your van, if you're happy, I admire you. But if you're not, you really should take on the opportunity of like your body, your health, really quickly.
Yeah.
And just broaden your skills as much as you can, whether it's with qualifications or knowledge, because as you progress and you mature into the industry, like yourself, you're at a stage where you're doing qualifications and gaining knowledge on things that aren't even remotely required in the industry, or even don't even have like a comparison into the industry, because you've understood that now is the time to do it, and there's these potential career routes that tree work is almost just funding, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, tree work, I always thought tree work's like you're stuck doing tree work, like you're only going to cut it. Like, but then I'm like, I don't want to necessarily always be the one climbing, cutting trees. It's like there's more options that sort of opens, like with the bird of prey work that I do, like help climb for them, like the bat survey and stuff. Like it's all options.
Yeah, I think that's a good point for us to sort of. We're not done with our careers, but for me, I'm at a real good stage with the company I work with. I manage the day-to-day operations. I'm still learning from the boss, and there's still routes that I can progress with my company that I work for, which gives me the drive to turn up every day and be better at my job. And you are still self-employed, and that's your sole intention, but you also you want to travel, you want to become qualified. So
yeah, like, I think in the space of 5 years of me contracting, I've done God knows how many courses.
Yeah,
like I just chuck myself on courses. Like
and I think that's where being self-employed definitely gives you the advantage of the free time. You know, take advantage of. There isn't a correct way to do it, but being self-employed is definitely helpful in terms of picking what you do, when you do it, who you do it for, and also allowing yourself the free time. I definitely am a bit obsessive, and I am very work driven. I work a lot more than most people, and but I enjoy doing it. So I feel like for both of us, Luke enjoys enjoying himself, and I enjoy myself working.
Yeah.
So it's like you see two career paths that kind of split off from working for companies, where I now work for a company still and don't really have any intentions of going self-employed anytime soon, because I just enjoy putting in a good shift every day and doing extra stuff. Whereas,
what are you trying to say?
You still put in a good shift, but your enjoyment outside of work is actually enjoying yourself outside of work. Whereas my enjoyment outside of work is just working.
Yeah.
So you've got two kind of, there's your like end game sort of rough ideas, and I think that's touched pretty well on our careers.
Yeah.
So I think we'll go back a little bit to starting our routes into the industry again. The basic necessities of what you have to buy and what you recommend in terms of PPE, climbing equipment, helmets, first aid kits, things like that. In college, you have to have chainsaw trousers, boots, a helmet, a handsaw, some grippy gloves, and some chainsaw protective gloves. Yeah. And then a first aid kit and a rope knife, that's what they require you to have in college.
But then I would say a rescue knife is silky at the end of the day.
I would say too. What they require you to have in college is what we said. When I started, it was just like the cheap stuff. So like a Petzl helmet. I think what was it, Mendel's, either Rocks. They're the black ones or the red ones. Airstreams or the Rocks. Everyone went for the Airstreams. Everyone had the Stihl trousers. That was kind of everyone had a Petzl helmet. Everyone had the Stihl or the Arbortech gloves.
Yeah.
Everyone had that Edelrid knife or a silky. And then fan and gripper gloves. Mostly people had.
Yeah, pretty much.
What I've learned for me is Arbortech is a pretty good standard. I've got the Reflex Pros, and I've had these and solely worn.
How'd you find the zips?
Terrible.
See, I've had my Arctic ones. I've got 2 pairs.
Yeah.
And I've had them probably 4 years. Zips never broken.
Really?
None of them broken.
See, I work out a lot, and I've got quite big legs. So buying the next size up.
Yeah.
I'm quite a short person, as you can definitely see in the video. Luke,
it's all camera.
Luke's wearing like real big stilettos.
Yeah.
You can't quite see, but because I'm quite short and I've got quite big legs, I have to go for the short leg and the standard waist.
Yeah.
Which does mean that my trousers come up quite tight when I wash them, and I think that's definitely.
Yeah, but I think that mine is somewhat tight as well.
Yeah, mine are pretty. Once these go in the wash, the wife's going to wash them, and they will be like spray on.
Right.
After like a week,
Then
they'll
they
be
loosen up
fine.
a little bit.
But then after a couple of days past the week, they start to smell. So I wash them again. So I'm constantly in like skinny jeans over the summer. But anyway, Arbortex for me are like the best chainsaw trousers. I quite liked the Fana. Was it gladiators or ventilators?
Yeah, big, they were heavy. And
Those
big.
were, I think the minimum requirement is 7 layers of Kevlar or 11 layers of Kevlar. These are, whatever these are the minimum amount that you have to have for safety, is what I've learned. And the fans, I think, added another couple of layers, which is why they were so big and heavy.
Yeah.
One thing I did prefer to those over these is I liked not having the elastic around my boots.
Yeah.
So one thing I always did straight away was cut the elastic. I just added a little sliver in the back, and I would cut the elastic out the back behind my boot, so it would still stay taut on my laces and not ride up. But if they did, they would often just fall back down. So that's one thing I did straight away. It might not work for you, but I hated walking around or climbing, mostly hedge work, and you have your boot, your trousers ride up above your boot. That would honestly, that would kick something off my brain, and I just couldn't focus on anything else other than getting that trouser leg down.
Yeah.
But there's loads of good options. But for me, I've had these. God, I had the Steel High Flex or Pro Flex, whatever they were.
The ones I had.
Those were really good. They discontinued them. Then I had Fanners. Those were big, heavy. They got quite, when they didn't get wet really quickly, but when they did, they just forever to dry out. And so that was probably about 2-3 years of those 2 pairs. And then the Reflex come out, everybody got those, and they brought out the Pro version, where rather than having protruding pockets, they were all just sort of slim zippers. The zips and the pockets are definitely a weak point. They're better now.
Yeah.
Obviously you've not had any problem with them.
Yeah.
Almost every pair of mine has had, these haven't yet, and I've had them about a year, which is normally when they go. But I've had them, those have been my sole trousers that I buy for 7 years.
Yeah.
Do you agree? So
Yeah, pretty much.
if you can fork out the extra money, Reflex Pros are definitely you're going to get them one day.
Because the thing is that there's so many other options.
Yeah.
But because the UK with EU regulations and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's definitely other
You're-
like cloggers, NZ. They've got like those are supposed to everywhere in like America or like out of Europe really.
Yeah.
Though that's like the standard they wear. Or again, Arbortex. The IC still
or like
see
the SIP.
SIP protection. Yeah.
SIP is good.
But yeah, I think if you're in Europe and you've got those standards that you have to meet, Reflex Pros don't really. They get hot, but no hotter than you would in another pair. If anything, probably a bit cooler.
Do you wear the fronts?
All-round protection.
All rounds.
I've
never touched all
I've
rounds.
had a pair
No,
of.
I've never touched.
I've had a pair of. So we also don't always have to wear all-round protection. We can wear fronts only if you're working on the ground, ground saws only, hedge trimming, things like that. But I've always had all
I
rounds.
feel like it felt really weird.
It feels naked. I feel naked.
Oh.
Yeah. So I have had a pair of fronts only, but they just felt baggier.
Yeah.
So I pretty quickly bought a pair. I had a pair of all rounds at the same time as well. So back to Arbortex with the all round protection, and they're just comfy.
Yeah.
They're really comfy trousers.
And you get used to the heat in the summertime.
Yeah,
and stuff,
definitely.
and in
Like,
the winter
you'll-
time, you want all round.
By the time you're looking, if you do buy a cheap pair, by the time you're looking at those, you're already used to the heat.
Yeah.
So you don't really care if they're hotter. But if you want the best, Arbortex the best. You're going to buy them one day. You're going to see almost every other true surgeon wearing them. You're going to get them. So just try and fork out the extra money. If you can, get those, or at least aim towards those.
Yeah.
Boots.
Go for a sponsorship, are you?
No.
Arctic
I'll take it. Boots. I I had the red Mendels, and then I went for a pair of Scaffell lights. My thinking behind boots, I've always worn trainers with protective boots, whereas you do wear trainers with protective boots when you actually have to. Other than that, you're in climbing boots.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or walking boots, doing your surveying
Yeah.
or other qualifications. My thinking, being a climber, is I want boots that don't flare out the longer you have them. And for me, I found that Andrew, sort of that Italian boot, for me was the best at sticking to its actual size throughout its entire lifetime. So I've never done the correct boot care or protection plan that they recommend. Nobody's ever done that. Nobody does it. But for me, I found that the Andrews, when you put them on, they didn't need like a wearing period for me. Maybe sometimes like you'd get them in the summer, they'd feel a little bit big and bulky because they were fresh, and you had a pair that's been absolutely ripped throughout the whole winter. They would feel a little tight, but other than that, they were pretty much true to size. They'd stay to size. But currently, I've got the what even are these? The Art Pros.
Art Pro Evo 2 or
That's
something.
it. I couldn't recommend these less. They're really comfy.
I found that they were the comfiest boots I've had from the moment I put them on.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I thought they were the most uncomfortable thing I've worn for like a month, and I've never had that with a pair of boots. So I've never worn boots until I got into tree work. But then the Mendels straight away were really comfortable, but once you wore them in, they just went flat.
Yeah.
So when you're climbing through forks and things like that, they just flared, you get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I had Andrews for like 3-4 years, and I think I had the C3s, whatever the newer pair of Andrews were, but they were in protection. Those were the best for me. They didn't flare, they were good, they were quite hard wearing on the ground, but that's another thing you've got to consider. If you're going to do mostly groundwork, maybe a pair of Andrews are good for you. But if you're thinking about doing more climbing, or you are a climber and you're just looking for a recommendation, for me, the Andrews were the best. These are still good, but I found that they flared out quite a bit and they're just a bit bulky for me. I like to be as slim as I can with my kit, which you'll soon realise in my kit there. So, yeah.
Was I the one that recommended them?
You were the one recommending them, so yeah, you'll get my invoice in the post.
Yeah. I thought so. I was trying to think. I was like, yeah, was it me?
Helmet. I think it's an industry standard now. I wear.
If you want to look like a Power Ranger, yeah.
If you want to feel cool.
Yeah.
I wear a snood on my head because I don't have any hair and I sweat a lot, so this helps. You don't have to. I just got like a pack of like 11.
It probably smells at the end of the day.
No, it smells fine.
I don't know if I want.
I wash my hair.
Yeah.
I was balding a little bit for a while.
Yeah.
So I've got a good hair routine,
Yeah.
and I'm not balding anymore. So
you're going for the L'Oreal sponsorship now?
I'm more of a Navino man.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But yeah, I always wear a snood. And then the Fana Protoss. I think it's like the best helmet in the industry.
Do you know the sort of? So it's got a 10-year lifespan. Right?
It does, yeah. I know that because I had to retire my old one.
Yeah. Well, and then it's actually more protection than the pencil ones.
So a lot of the other, I think almost every other helmet other than this is technically side protection, am I right? Or top only?
It's top only.
That's it. So it's full protection or something impact on top, the way they're built. Whereas these are also side, front, back. Like if it's on any impact around, it's rated to protect
your neck as well. Quite well.
They're definitely a bit heavier, but the only thing everyone says they're massive. But if you look at comparison size, from the smallest helmet on the market, I think it is like a cask or maybe there's another brand very similar. They're only just under an inch bigger in diameter all the way around.
Yeah.
You're not going to notice. Like for comfort, they're amazing. The adjustability as well. It's no little clicker on the back, no little twisty bits on the side. You've got height adjustments on how it fits on your head, like up and down, where it sits on your forehead. You've got your ear defender sort of tightness adjustment, and then also the clamp on the back, plus the chin strap. They're amazing. Plus the hygiene kit replacement is, I think, way better on these. It's not just the forehead strap and the top. You've also got this back piece, and you can also get a hygiene kit for your ear defenders, which I know you can with like the MSIs or whatever.
The only disadvantage is the ear defenders that it comes with.
those are terrible.
They're only rated for like chainsaws. So if
Oh,
you're buying
barely.
but well, it depends on chainsaw you've decided to
And I
pull,
found
or like,
the visors are better on these as well because they have a thinner rated mesh. They do two types, don't they? So they used to do like a clear plastic.
they still do for it.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, but the visor you're going to get changed every 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
They should know. Luke's more clued up on this.
That's just what the manufacturers say. You're supposed to change it.
To be fair, they do start to like, if you don't care for them like nobody does, they start to like kink a little bit, get caught on the upside of the helmet, like sort of the lip, and then tear.
But I only know it because I had to change mine, and then I read the book, and it's like, yeah, you're supposed to change it every 5 years. I was like,
I never looked into it at all.
No, it's just.
They normally don't last 5 years. No. But no, I think this is the best for comfort. While I've got it, I used to use a Senna. I think it was an SMH-10R, which is like the multi-com link. You can link between like 4 other people, unless you somehow do a dodgy thing where I've got 4 people, Luke's got 4 people, but me and one of my and Luke's 4 people, or me and Luke, we can connect to like 8 or 12 people. It's a bit of a dodgy thing, a way of doing it. Yeah. But really, you're not going to have more than 4 people on intercoms per time.
No.
I think intercoms are a game changer for me, and I love having it every day. Do you use intercom?
Not really, no.
No.
No, I don't know.
So we obviously operate a lot of machines, and there's always a noise going on. So whether we're hedge trimming, just having a chat, I feel like having a conversation stops you from just getting in a bit of a shit mood. Like if you're just dragging or trimming, or mostly just dragging and chipping, it gets a bit like lonely, and you feel a little bit left out from all the guys having the fun in the back garden. So I found intercom and just having a bit of an abuse, a bit of fun, is really good.
I'd say from a contractor side of things, it's like there's no point. Well, I wouldn't say there's no point investing in it. Yeah. But working with so many companies, there might be one company I work with that uses them, and the rest don't.
Yeah.
And then, because I'm not one for listening to music while I'm working, I don't put any podcasts, music, anything like that.
I'm the opposite.
Because I can deal with my own.
No, that's good.
I just dial
I think when you're subcontracting, a lot of people either have like the cheap Amazons, or some people have the Protoss versions. Some people like us, we have the Steels.
Yeah.
And some people have Sennas. Some people only have Senna where you can connect to one other person.
Yeah. Like often, I work with one company regularly, and if we're doing a rigging job, I'll just use their lid. Yeah. And then I've got the communication.
So we all had Sennas, and then the Sennas the mics would go. We had a company do it all privately, like the routing through the helmet. He would just take the helmet, set them up, bring them back to us. But I think that's the best way you can do it, but something would always go wrong with them. The Steels have been pretty
I like them.
These are really
and
the ear defender is actually rated. Yeah. It's a higher rated ear defender. So if you're not using comms or music or something, and you're just doing work, you can still be around the
thing with those compared to the Senna, they're specifically designed for the industry.
Exactly.
Anyway, but you've also got the noise cancelling on those opposed to the Senna.
So that's what I found is really Senna kind of sometimes would cut out like hedge trimmer noises or like light chainsaw use. Yeah. But these, it's like they've programmed it in a way where they know when you're using steel bit kit. Obviously, we only use steels. We've got an Echo pruning topper, but other than that, it's like all steel kit. And even like the stump grinder, the chipper, I almost never hear it when someone else is using it. They've also got an ambient sound, so like if you, they're quite bulky, and sometimes when you take them up, they flare out quite a bit. So if you keep them on, you can press a button a couple of times, and you can now hear like a pair of like Procoms, like military style. You can hear everything around up until like the cracking of branches on your feet. It's really good. So like if a customer just comes out of nowhere and taps you in the back and goes, "Oh, could you just quickly," or "Do you mind?" You can still hear it, or choose not to. Yeah, this is what we normally do. You're probably going to start on a Petzl, but that's definitely a good one to slowly get into. I know people who don't bother and they really like the cask. People just love the Petzl, but what I hated was when summer, it was really sweaty, the Petzl would just be covering it would be like touching my nose. Yeah. It would just flare forward.
I find it sits better on your head though.
Perfect, but I think that just comes down to the adjustment. And then mine, the vents stay open all year round, and then I've got a GoPro mount just on the front. I know you've got the actual GoPro mount. Yeah. I'm not a real YouTuber, so I don't care about all that. I just stuck one of mine just side on, and the camera levels it out for me. One day I should upgrade it to the proper one. But
yeah, but the proper one limits you.
Really?
Yeah, where it tucks under there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say limits you, but you can't, like if you wanted to film something that, like, you can't, because you can't add a...
That's where the
change
DJI
angle.
is good, because they've got an attachment for the side and the top.
Uh-huh.
So when you turn it the up way,
Yeah.
it automatically films in 9x16, so shorts.
Yeah. So that's what it does. But with the GoPro, you have to physically.
You have to film, yeah. With this, you don't.
Yeah.
Just another pro for the DJI.
Also, yeah.
Yeah, and then basic climbing kit. I think for me, I was pretty obsessed with buying kit for a while, and then I found out what worked for me, and I just never really cared. But I think a good harness, I think Petzl's a good one to start learning on. Something light, fabric based. I know the Current do one, or is it the Current Sentinel? Notch and Current do some real good lightweight ones, and Petzl do a lightweight one. For me, after I got out of my Petzl, I really enjoyed the back support of like a tree motion. Because I do a lot of big stuff, and you only do like little privilege jobs.
Yeah, you're the hero.
I think just to quickly brush past, I think when you're starting your climbing career, you should really start on not heavy stuff. I think it's quite tough to cut back and relearn the knots and their uses, because I found that I got a bit too quick into biomechanical stuff because I found it cool. I had a Prusik, and then I went straight to a zigzag. I had a Prusik on my side strop, I went straight to an ART positioner, and then that was pretty much my setup. Like, there was no dangling a source, straight away, DMM hook.
I think that's a necessity.
Now, for sure.
Yeah.
Or at least a carabiner with
I can't stand it when I see chainsaw hanging
that
out.
gives me severe anxiety watching like an old school climber climb around.
They just like throw it.
They chuck it through the fork and then climb through them. No, not for me. You thinking similar? Like, try and stick to the knots and stuff like that? Because I found now that when I started to need the knots, there was a good period when I got into SRT when I was just climbing on knots and things like that, where even using them in rigging and pulling and like 3-to-1s with like self-tending hitch climber knots, and you're not using a hitch climber, you're using a bit of rope, because it's going to hook onto that sort of 14, 16 mil rope would definitely be helpful. So I definitely think for me, get a Prusik, learn the basics of climbing the tree and not your rope, because I found when you're using a mechanical device, it's quite easy to make those small adjustments, which is really nice for comfort. But bless you. Which I think is really nice for comfort.
One more time.
Which is really nice for comfort. But if you want to be a good climber, I feel like you should obviously have trust in your kit, and there are going to be scenarios where you're relying purely on your kit to keep you in the tree and keep you comfortable. But I think to be a good, fast, competent climber, you really need to know when it's safe to do things, and your ropes for me should just kind of be a thing that's there to stop you from falling out of the tree for the most part. There are definitely times where SRT with 2 lines and a side strop and like having extra kit is like a necessity, or like big, lanky, uncomfortable, or just shitty trees in general. Like having more kit and more points of contact to free up both hands is definitely more useful. But I think while you're learning, you really should work out how to climb a tree with the benefit of having a climb line, more than you should work out how to climb with your system and just sort of float through the tree. You think?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's very much, people nowadays are learning straight to SRT, but they're not learning double, like moving rope. Which moving rope teaches you things that single line doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
Like route planning, getting around.
Absolutely.
Like
when you
factors.
Friction, cambium friction, when it's a good time to put cambium saver in, and there's so much stuff that you'll accidentally learn and have as knowledge later on in your career, which I think is why you should start on mostly knots and climbing a tree, because when you don't have to do it that way, there will be a scenario where you'll be like, ooh, I could just use the tail end of my line here. I don't climb with 2 ropes, and I know you do as often as possible.
On occasions. Not all. I wouldn't say I climb 2 ropes all the time.
But I've definitely had trees where I used to do a lot of OPM removal, or like big oak deadwoods, and I only ever had one climbing system, or I did have a spare, it was too much effort. So climbing with the tail end of my rope, which you learn at college, so setting up a 3-knot system, things like that, which you don't think are useful at the time, one day you may have a use for it. So it's grabbing a hold of all that knowledge and really fledging it out as you're progressing, whether it's with the kit or with the sort of technique, sort of playing around, making mistakes, learning how to do it most efficiently. Because one day you're just going to be like, that 3-knot system that I used once, or I used while I was at college because they forced me to, is actually quite useful.
Yeah,
Right,
I agree, yeah.
for the fun. I'm going to start with my pro line. We'll do my kit and we'll do yours, because Luke's kit will take a bit longer than mine. I have just, I think it's a notch throw line and then a notch throw away. I like it.
I was just dust. I thought that was the throw line coming through. It's that old.
No, this is brand new. I've got a notch throw line like kit. I think they've got the highest rated weight on the line, which if you get like a tight fork, it's got that better minimum breaking strength, stop from snapping basically. I think you should at least have 2 throw lines.
Yeah.
And I like a 12-ounce weight.
Yeah,
I find a 10-ounce one almost never comes down like a fish at dark tree. Almost never, unless you've got like a perfect throw, like a big shot or something where you get that perfect anchor point.
Yeah.
A 12-ounce will sometimes struggle, but will almost always come down, and you can be accurate. With a 16-ounce, it's like too heavy.
I've never touched
16, or, no, sorry, not 16, 14 is almost,
Just
for me, it's like a little bit too heavy for me to, I find when I'm doing like height and I'm just like, I just need to get up there, through the legs is the best. But if I'm doing like, not a massive tree or somewhere where I will be accurate, but like the one arm, yeah, 12-ounce for me is like, I can really like get it bang on, like within a few throws. At least before I decide to give up, get ladder out anyway.
Yeah. So,
throw line, definitely want to get that. I feel like you should have one really early on because you never really get good at them. And I always say that you get like 5 throws like a month before like you've used your 3 trials, and now you're like fresh out throw lines because you just never seem to get them otherwise.
I find throw lines you kind of have to go with a very clear mindset.
Yeah.
If you go in with the first throw, and go, I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it.
You're not going to get it.
Yeah, you got to go.
I don't. Yeah, throw line. I think especially nowadays when people are climbing SRT almost solely, I think you really get on to it, try and get good with it, realise you're not going to ever get good at it, and then just have a spare. Definitely have a spare, or at least be working with someone who also has an aerial rescue kit with pro line in, whether it's a basic bit kit with a grinding tooth on the end of it or something, but just someone who also has something so you can get up a tree. Because you're not always going to be climbing trees, but you can get a ladder up to it and get up to at least the first branch or second branch. You know, mostly like pines and cedars, the minimum requirement, or even sometimes like plane trees, like London planes. To get up into those, you have to get a throw line out.
Yeah.
And then SRT. I think you should start on double rope with all the basic kit, but for me, SRT is like a basic bit of knowledge for longevity as a climber. I think if you solely go into it where you're only climbing double rope, whether you've got the fanciest bit of kit or not, you're going to be using so much more upper body, and that's where I find that you get those repetitive strain disorders. You're using your shoulders a lot, your hips a lot, you're using your elbows obviously already for the climbing with a chainsaw, and even if you're doing it properly, you've got a lot of like joint problems which you will almost always see in tree work, and I feel like SRT definitely helps. Your legs are the strongest muscles in your body. If you can access the tree, you're almost always climbing with your legs, and your upper body is just kind of supporting your route through the tree, and then your upper body can be used for the hard straining stuff like cutting and chucking a branch out or a log out, rather than straining it, getting up and around the tree, and then also cutting and chucking stuff out the tree, carrying saws, getting down, helping out, dragging. You're just going to mess up your hips, you're going to mess up your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists. So again, it goes back to really fledging out your knowledge of climbing techniques and all of that side of knowledge, so that when it comes into the more advanced stuff, those basic things become like second nature.
Yeah. I mean, every now and then I double with it, possibly.
I'll see.
On a very small tree.
I do climb.
6
I'll
foot.
almost always access a big tree with SRT. But if I'm doing like a dismantle, or I don't really have to go back up to my anchor point, and I'm going to be working purely below, I will climb double rope quite a lot. Even with an SRT device, I'll almost always I find I use double rope quite a bit more often now because my knowledge of what I should be doing around the tree is better.
Yeah.
So like, I know I'm going to access the tree. It might be a reduction where I'm going to have to set up redirects. Obviously we use SRT, but if I'm doing specific limb pruning or dead wood and I can start here, finish down here, I don't want to come back up again. So I'm going to come up, set my anchor point, whether it be double rope, because I'm basically working my way down and I'm done, or I'm going out to this piece and I'm done. I just want to get the job done and get out the tree. If I'm going to be coming up here to knock a top out anyway. Kit bag. I've had mine. I used to have the same as Luke. Well, before that I had like a paratrooper's bag. Then I bought this one because I thought it was cool. And then I started doing a lot of big stuff, crane work, and I found that I needed something a little bit more hard wearing. I don't know what this is called.
The Tafelberger.
Is it just the rope bucket?
Yeah, like rope bucket thing.
It's pretty expensive, but I've had mine for 8 years now, and I've dropped it out of.
Yeah, you're not dropping that out.
No, but I mean in terms of like hard wearing. When I first found out about this, they had it on Cheryl Tree or Tree Stuff, and the video of it was quite literally dropping it out of like a mute with rubble in there.
Yeah.
I've had mine for 8 years. There are some weak points, but the leather's never going to get broken.
No.
I find that because there's so many air holes, your rope gets dry almost overnight, almost every time, and there's a drainage hole at the bottom. You get a spare shoulder strap which goes over the top. Don't know why on earth you would use that. And then you get the 2 shoulder straps. I use mine quite a lot coming up in the tree with me with my rope because I keep all my kit in the same bag. I do have some other little loose bits which are kind of like rigging rings, things like that don't get in this bag that are on my own personal kit. But this has all of my everyday use kit in, and I think it is a better thing to have under the tree. I've dropped trees on it, like I've knocked the top out of the tree and it's just completely flattened it. The leather is like unbreakable. Like in terms of like hard wearing kit bags, I think this for me is the best you can get because there really is minimal fabric. Like even it's stitched, all the leather is like 2 pieces. You've got an outside shell and then a base. It's all weaved together with their own paracord, and you could just redo it if you want to. Mine's starting to go. But 8 years of work, and that's the only real weak point. And sometimes I'm just so tired, I'll do this almost every day. And you just chuck it there and you get to or dropping out of a crane.
Get the one with wheels.
Yeah, but I can't drop that out of a tree.
No, trust me, it's not the most practical thing.
So one day I'll find the effort and just rethread it, and there's another 8 years worth of use out of it. So. Harness. I had a Petzl Sequoia, and then I got a Tree Motion Evo with a double bridge. Loved that harness. Was gutted that when I needed to replace it, I didn't make it anymore. And then I went for the Tree Motion Pro. It's like because they've got the Essential and I got the Essential, sorry. So I no longer have the buckles on mine.
Okay.
Which I never liked the idea of having a buckleless because I often need to go for a piss when I get out of the tree. So I'm like, quickly undo.
Yeah.
Whereas I found it gives me the same back support and hip support. I don't use suspenders, which I obviously spoke about me, like I wanted to get a set and try them. But I found with like a mostly fabric based harness, they flare out quite a bit where you put your chainsaw. Using bigger saws in a tree quite often, my Sequoia, the fabric would just become like buckled and was permanently sideways. Whereas I find these are like built for it. But you'll find what you like over the years. Tree Motion I think is like a good base standard, and other than that you've got some real lightweight harness like the Current and the Notch. Those are really good harnesses. They're just really comfortable. I wouldn't say this is the comfiest, but if I'm using big kit and I'm using big saws and I'm climbing for ages, this is like the most supportive for me. I have it set up the same way every day. Got my single bridge, I only climb with a single bridge with a ring on there, so I've just got the one ring. I quite like the double bridge, didn't really use it often, but I liked it, it was nice to have. I still do use this with a second climbing system, but it's just it's not ideal. but I don't fly them often enough with 2 systems that I really care to have a second bridge. Come around the side, I have weaved on a piece of their paracord and I did a notch quickie because I like to have my saw strop around the front.
Why didn't you just clip the quickie to the front?
Because the quickie was there for storage because I don't often use it.
Right.
And now it's just kind of a little bit below where my chainsaw hook's on.
You know, I'll show you my chainsaw clip and you might.
Okay.
I'll tempt you on.
They do come with like a breakaway one, this red fabric one. The idea is that if it gets attached to your saw, you do an outboard step cut for some reason other than an inboard step cut or a gob cut, and you cut through your hinge and it takes the saw with it. This will tear away. So will this piece of paracord. The knocks aren't done very well, and I almost never drop my saw. I will always store it or slowly descend it through the. I never drop my saw.
Never fry it.
Never. Like if my saw's not attached to that, it's being used. Yeah, and then I use a non-rated carabiner, snap block. I get loads of abuse about this, but my thinking again is, I'd rather the saw get broken and that carabiner fail and replace a saw than it stay attached to me and start de-threading my harness.
How much? What's the braking?
Still pretty strong.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to take a lot to break that, isn't it?
Yeah, 10 kilonewtons. Oh, that's open. 24. So
it's
the normal was like 28, isn't it?
It's near enough the same as it did with triple locking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not much weaker, and that paracord's going to fail just as much as this, but it allows me to always keep my saw strop in front of me.
Yeah.
So if I have to swap hands, I'm happy to cut and hold with both my hands. I'm competent. And so I want the length out the saw strop. I don't fuck around with fancy recoil strops and bungees. These almost always get cut because they accidentally get hooked in, you don't realise, they get cut, or someone else borrows it, they cut it, you pull out your silky, it gets cut. They cost like a tenner. I normally buy 2, cut one just a smidge, and then it lasts for like 3 years. And then I'm like, oh my god, I've cut it, and I replace it, that one gets a little smidge. So I just buy a cheap saw strop. I think this is the Stein one, yeah. I don't like a ring on there as well, it's just unnecessary weight. If you don't clip it straight to your chainsaw with a carabiner, that's another fucking red flag. Like, for me, I've built my kit around being quite slim and minimal. I like to be as light as I possibly can, but have the ability to have extra bits of kit do different jobs. I don't have anything. Most of my kit can be used in different scenarios.
Yeah.
I used to have my silky, so I am right-handed predominantly, so all my cutting stuff is on my right side. I used to have my silky dangle down by the side. I then I don't like
it how you put it like that, to be fair.
I hate it.
Really?
It
looks good.
It does look cool. I feel like it's a bit of a samurai.
Yeah.
But it does often get in the way of the gait. But because I've used it for so long now, I prefer the silky being real close to my back because I never quite got on with the saw pod leg silkies. I tried it, I just couldn't get on with it. I really forced myself to do it, and I just couldn't get around it. But I know the back of my harness is always in the same spot. I can only access it with my right hand, which is what I want as well, because I want to get in a scenario where I'm using the right side of my body with the cutting stuff to keep the fabrics well out of the way.
Yeah.
Then I've got one of the silver ball harness bags. I think it's the smallest one they do. And then in here I've got probably some rubbish from the snack because I did a big tree yesterday.
Picnic up in the tree.
Rice Krispie Cakes, another sponsor. I use the 4SRT, just chest harness, and then I've got like a DMM XSRE overpriced snap lock. So that can obviously only be used for one purpose, but once it's on me, it doesn't add any weight.
Yeah, it can be helpful in a rescue thing. Yeah, you know about like say someone's unconscious.
Keeping someone like close.
You can clip their chest thing
instead
up
of wrapping their
around, and then that's more comfortable because it's actually holding the whole body.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Foot sender again. Its purpose is to get me up and down or up a tree, so it can't be. Probably you can make a descender and clip it in a way where you can use it as like a hand. I don't know. You can use it for other stuff, but it's just a foot sender for me.
Yeah.
So those are like, and that's it. Sometimes I'll put like some wedges in there if I'm doing like some big stuff at the top, or I want to crack off big lumps of wood, or snacks, and just snuds if it's a real dusty tree. It's like storage really. Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then I just use some of the loops, little redirect ring and carabiner. On my left side is just a bit of a mess. I've got my rope wrench, which has been in my kit bag, so it's a bit wanky, but it still serves the same purpose because it's purely. Obviously, the rope wrench only engages when you're descending anyway, so mine just gets chucked around. And then I've got attached at the back my knee ascender, which is the first bit of kit, other than like carabiners and other things like that, that can be used. It did snap literally yesterday, so I need to redo the paracord, which has lasted like 6 years. You can set up like a 3-to-1 in a tree when descending, if you're not using it just to ascend, to progress, to capture your climbing system, to progress over a branch, over a fork. There's so many different scenarios you can use this thing from. But that, if it's not being used, it will go in the bag just to keep those loops out of the way. I hate things dangling on my harness, so I'll often like store up and daisy chain my side strap out of the way as well. I know there's other things for it, but I'm very basic. Like, I really don't want extra big bulky things to store my kit away. Tape sling carabiner, too many scenarios you can use that in, and then a pinto and another carabiner. And then I just use sort of a hitch climber style pinto pulley for my side strop. And I think I'm on like, I want to say like 3 meters. Yeah, 3 meters. And then just a knot on the end. And then that can be used as a small second climb line down on my lower Ds for a bit more comfort when I'm blocking down, or on my side strop just as a normal side strop. It's all quite disorganised because I used it yesterday and it was
you haven't got to explain why it's a mess.
Yes, you know. That's everything. That is probably as basic as you can be. I then climb at the minute because I broke my rope runner.
Oh, yeah,
I just, to be honest, I'm going to get another rope runner, but I'm just too lazy. I just haven't had the time to just go and fork out £400 in a climb system that I paid like £250 for like 4 years ago. So yeah, I just climb on a rope wrench at the minute, or pitch climber. I don't really know what knots I do. Sometimes it's a VT, sometimes it's a newt, sometimes it's just a couple of twists and a pull. And
if it holds,
it almost always holds, almost. Which I think is where going back to like basic stuff. It's like a newt with like.
that is like the most creative VT cross like.
It's kind of it kind of goes hooks back up a little bit, but
it's creative.
Yeah,
I mean,
it works. But I think that's where climbing on knots really early, because I went back to doing some knot work with the SRT stuff to buying an advanced piece of kit. When it failed, if you've only ever climbed on that stuff, you don't know what you're doing. You don't have any knowledge of this isn't an actual knot. But it works because I know what I'm looking for. And then I don't climb on a splice rope, I just tie is it a barrel knot? It's technically a barrel.
Yeah, double fisherman's.
Yeah, like a double fisherman's. And it's fine. You could climb with a bowline, but I don't really like the bowline.
People disagree about that.
I think they just get in the way for me with the tail. Like, it kind of falls in between.
But the bowline itself weakens the rope.
Yes, yeah.
That would be a very long-winded video explaining that.
Yeah, well, it was something like
it halves about.
I see this with rigging.
Yeah.
Andrew Schultz.
Yeah.
He uses a splice line.
Yeah.
Because that only reduces the weight by like 20%.
Yeah.
And a bow line or another similar knot's like 40 to 50%, somewhere in between there. But
it's all to do with the bend radius.
That's it, the bend radius on there.
Yes.
Yeah, just basic. And then I've had, this is my third current Squire V2. I think it's the best climb line for me on the market because I climb on this double rope as well. It's got a bit of stretch in it, like not a lot. It's perfect for SRT. It's a little bit bouncy for pure access. Like your sole use for it is to access a tree. It's got a bit of bounce in there, but it's got enough bounce that it doesn't shock your entire body as you're springing up the tree. And it doesn't hold memory like most SRT lines do when you do climb double rope or tie knots in them. So I think current Squire V2 and orange, even when it gets old and faded, you can still see it. Like almost
I've never understood the tree industry and how they do
like
stuff
black and blue
black,
and
green,
yeah,
like all the same colours that you're going to find in a tree. Like, it's just why?
I think the colour stuff. I don't know. I think I went there. I had a Dorothy's Cougar. And I was like, this is cool. And then it got like wet and sappy one year. And it's like now it's black. And like the guys can't see it. I think. But in terms of climb line, to start with, like a tachyon.
Yeah, I mean, I started with that as a climb line.
Oh,
the Yale poison ivy.
Yeah, the poison ivy's good. I also had
Still got it.
I did have a Yale. I think actually this is from my Yale poison ivy climb line that I used to have.
How many years ago was that?
Luke is also a Lola inspector and hates to see my kit bag. But
no, it's interesting.
It passed Lola.
I bet it did.
It did pass Lola, and it was dated.
I bet.
So yeah, it's not from the dated piece, but it's. I know it's from the same piece, like a tachyon, it's fine. But I think starting with like basic kit and progressing into some more advanced stuff when you know what you're going to plan on doing with your the most everyday stuff. If you're buying your kit yourself or your company's buying it, they're probably only going to buy you one rope and one harness, obviously, and one side strap. And if you're buying it yourself and you can afford to chuck a double rope line as well as an SRT line, you can go slightly further and go for like a pure Kermantle style, like core and sheath, like really static line for SRT. But I find the Squire is, like I say, a bit springier, so not quite as offensive on your joints, and can still be used like amazingly for like everyday use. It doesn't really milk as much either. I found like quite quickly you get the milk out of it really quick. It doesn't take forever, but basic, like I think like an 11.5 mil rope as well for start to finish is like basic minimum. Like getting a 13 mil rope to climb, 12 mil rope to climb on it.
Hard work.
Yeah, it's like not ability shit. When you then decide, oh, I'm going to treat myself to a Petzl zigzag, those are like, technically they go up to a 13 mil, but it wears the shit out of it.
Yeah,
and
well,
also
13 is tight.
It's tight. Like to get in and off, to check it, to clean it, it's really tight. So you end up not bothering. So then you don't know when stuff's wearing and dying, and it also wears out way quicker. So I think 11.5 mil climb line, whether it's a tachyon or a Squire or like a Yale Explorer or something like that, it's a good standard for size. And also, we've got a guy who climbs on tachyon at the 11.5. His is really springy, but it still works. So it's like finding a good start point, like Yale with their tachyon. It can still be used for the double rope, knot system, prusik, hitch climber, spider jack, zigzag, and then SRT before you go and go, oh, you know what, I'm only climbing SRT as a daily basis. Let me buy the really expensive climb line. So,
really?
Let's get into Luke's bag.
Are you sure? Yeah. Are you prepared to see?
So kit bag to start with
is the old.
I'll tell you what, if you come here.
Oh, I go and set the stage.
I'll get out of your way.
I've set the stage now. Because if you felt the weight difference between that and your bag, go on, have a weight comparison.
Jesus.
But that's not even. That's not. I don't think that's that heavy. I've held heavier
you know
bags.
what? Like,
I've held heavier bags than that.
But it's actually not that much heavier.
No,
it's not that much
seem
heavier.
to think it's like weight, like stupid.
I feel like there's a stigma of how much kit you have.
There is a stigma. There is.
How kit centric you really
That's the
are.
whole reason I'm here for the video. Is to like prove my.
It's just to clear the air.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching this far into the video.
No,
really
they're going to cut out by now, aren't they?
I'll chuck a pin in so that people can see it.
Yeah, they can be like, oh, this is his kit bag. I was thinking when you were talking through your harness, when you see my harness, you're probably going to have like some sort of fit.
2 seconds. We'll make sure everything's in focus still. That was perfect. So much more.
This is where it all begins. We have the old.
See, I also had the same stigma towards Luke. He's got a lot of kit, but looking at it in person, it's still very slim. But I think I've gone basic. Mine's slim because of how little sort of organisation I've done. Because I keep it very slim. But whereas Luke's is so organised with like little accessory pieces that it really does. Yeah, it's quite sleek. I really like these cam.
I love that. Honestly,
yeah, it's really cool.
I would not bother. That's like it's double-ended.
Yeah.
Like the double-ended lanyard. So it's like.
And it's on a gyro as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes as a gyro thing.
Yeah.
So it's like 7 meters this size drop.
Wow.
But
it really doesn't look it.
But I can have that as a double rope system.
Two.
I can go around one system, and if I need to, I'll just slap on a second one to get me in position.
Yeah.
And then if for whatever reason I feel like I'm going to fall off, I can just whack another one to keep me balanced on the lid.
Wicked. Yeah.
So it's
and that's where you got two different approaches. I trained for quite a while with almost not using a side strap, and then realised that like
side strap's your best friend.
It's safe. Like if you're going to cut and hold, don't cut and hold and fall out of the tree.
No.
At least still stay on the tree if you're going to cut yourself.
Yeah. It's not cool.
Start with harness. What harness do you have?
I've got the Courant Koala.
Yeah, which is ridiculously light.
Yeah, like I started with the Tree Motion. I only climbed on Tree Motion for 5 years at the company, and then bought a Tree Motion for 2 years because I was like, well, that's all I know.
Everybody's got it. Yeah.
So I'll just keep buying that because I know I get on with it. But then after that, I was like, I've had enough because it was so heavy.
They are really heavy.
I was always finding I was picking it up.
Yep.
So then I moved. I got my mate first, to be fair. I said to my mate, I was like, right, maybe you try that harness, because he was looking to find a new one. I was like, you try it.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. I've heard really good things. It's just come out.
Yeah, I said, you give it a go, see what you think.
Yeah.
And then he got it, and then he brought it in, and I was like, oh, actually, that looks decent. And chatted with the guy I used to work with down my road, and he got this, moved to this. He was like, yeah, it's really solid harness, like really comfortable. There's the problem with me, the Tree Motion, because of so much customizing stuff,
got a bit crazy.
Got a bit out of hand. Yeah. Whereas now there's not much you can like necessarily customize with. So I just try and keep it basic and just like I say basic, but you know, like I've got the DMM Cayman for the first aid kit, which I can just pop on and off. And like bring it around to me.
Cool. Yeah.
Got that on the back there. Then I've got a little carabiner thing for bridge to bridge rescue stuff. A Prusik that I have for multiple uses. A little cutaway for again bridge to bridge.
So just spin that around, and so you can see here you've got your first aid. I don't have a first aid kit on me. I definitely should, and I think these are amazing. Like quick and easy, one-handed use. Because if you're a subcontractor or working for a big company, chances are you either don't have an aerial rescue because the guy isn't thinking about your life, he's thinking about monetary gain out of the tree. So he is the aerial rescue, or the guy. A lot of people subcontract climbers in because they don't climb and they've never intended on climbing. So
they're not getting you down.
Yeah, are they going to be competently getting you out? Probably not. So being able to be your own first aid is like a must in the tree. But yeah, so and then you can see like how organised and neat and tidy. Like same with my harness, or my thinking is Luke's got a lot of things like carabiner and a cutaway for like a. You can use it for a redirect if you wanted to. You can use it for tying kit out of the way, or like hanging something off your rope if you're doing. If you want to clip a bag for like cobra bracing. I think there's so many aspects you can use it for, but it's really important not to have a piece of kit on your harness, if possible, that has only one use. Otherwise, it's just unnecessary extra weight. And then same as me, DMM bolt.
I used to have 4, like 2 that
not
side.
the DMM bolt, sorry, the Rocky Exotica, what do they call it? I don't know, the Rocky Exotica one though, I love it because it's locking and the gate is really big for one-handed unclip and reclip. I think it's really cool.
Sharp things. I used to have two on both sides. But then I got that IC Nessie just to help manage. But I've just won, actually. Just won one of those rope pots.
I saw. Luke entered in the saw pod competition. I literally a week before I mentioned saying like, I was thinking about maybe buying one because they're on a startup. Luke entered the competition and he was like, I don't really care for it. And he won it. I'm sure I might be able to convince him to sell it to me once he decides he doesn't like it. But lanyard storage, I just daisy chain mine.
But
Luke's like the far end of the scale. Like
daisy chain and loop.
I've probably only got enough to fill that daisy chain up, but when you've got 7 meters, it's like a necessity.
I don't find that gets in the way either.
No, I agree. I used to have the DMM or Petzl did those little rope clips. And so like a bit of paracord. Those were really cool, but I found they were quite tight, and to get back into the stowaway.
Yeah.
And I just ended up not bothering. Yeah. Whereas I've used that in store and on someone else, and I was like, this is really cool. But I don't really care to spend extra money on stuff that I know works for me every day, even though it would definitely be a benefit. Whereas Luke just likes to make his life as easy as possible. Rightfully so. Yeah, so 100%. Again, with the side strop, mine it can only be used as a side strop or like a second line, a small second line. Whereas Luke's, you've got not only 2 side strops or like a really long, small second line. You know, you've got multi-purpose, you've got triple purchase there on different things. It's stowed away nice and clean and tight, real clean, real tight.
Yeah, well, I just used that as one climbing system the other day.
Yeah,
I had it between around 2 branches. Used
thimble. Yeah.
No, you just used the roller pulley between it and pulled them in between. So then you got my weight on these 2 branches, moved between them. Then a second lanyard just below. Yep. Like for those little stuff. Always carry this up there.
Yeah, the Petzl rollers are really good.
Always
so, again, like pulling up a saw into the tree or getting someone else to do it. Small rigging.
But that's what I find is good with the hitch climber now. Because I move back to hitch climber a lot more.
Use the
take a bite
through. Yeah.
That's what I've used a lot too. Then my chest tether, which goes just clips straight on, and then
so that Luke uses suspenders, but these ones actually already have. Well, they didn't. You've put a tether in there for it. Whereas I use a chest harness instead.
Yeah. But the good thing about that is just this is on a swivel.
Wicked.
So it's
I don't know if that is much use, but
it makes it feel like
mine just stays in the same spot.
Yeah, it makes it feel like it's useful, you know. But I wouldn't go back to using a harness without suspenders on there. Yeah,
my fear is it would always restrict my sort of flow in the tree.
It will.
But nowadays,
it'll feel restrictive at first, but you get used to it, and then you don't feel as restricted because you're so used to not having anything around your shoulder that you're like, I can't move.
Well, the thing is, when you're using an SRT harness, it feels restrictive and you get used to it. Yeah. I can see why it would be something similar. And then what, like 90 quid plus, like including VAT or something like that nowadays as well. It's like,
I don't even think it's that much.
They're just not expensive at all. But
I would get onto my bridges, but I don't know if you want to look at those, to be honest.
So, Jesus.
3 bridge wonder now.
3 bridges.
See, because I find this was solely how
sorry. So this the double bridge with like one single ring, but instead you've got the gyro.
Yeah.
So you can have 2 systems on the one ring.
Yeah. So I can have 2 systems off of that, and the reason for not having one in there is because it's quite a tight point on that. Yeah. And then 2 is just a bit more comfort, a bit more reassurance, I guess. But it wears the shackle down more evenly. Yeah. So that is like I wouldn't go bothered back to a ring.
I did when I had my even with the hitch climber or my rope runner non-swiveling system. You go from a Petzl zigzag, you're like, oh, this is horrible, so one-dimensional. You forget about it if you climb it long enough, but when you have a system with a swiveling, like your rope get tangled, or if you're in a way where you want to lean away from your system like you should be, but you're facing the other way, you end up having to side strop, tie your system on, unstrap it, spin it, loop it, sort your harness out and clip back in, otherwise you end up with knots and bends. And
that's what I hated, the transition between learning double rope to SRT. I climbed SRT for a week, and by the end of the week my back was in agony. Really? Because it was like, I was so used to the Petzl swivel, like on the zigzag, to then going from just a carabiner to a ring. I was in agony by the end of the week because I had no movement.
I think there's a stick, like people think that you need a lot of kit to climb SRT because they look at most people climb SRT like this. But then I climb SRT almost every day and I've got not like less than half the amount of kit on my day-to-day use. So it's like you don't need all the kit to get into doing it, or even, I'm 10 years in the industry, and I'd say I'm pretty experienced, pretty confident and competent climber, and I don't have really any kit. There's stuff that I'd like to buy and would definitely make my life easier. Luke is like, if I had the money and I wanted to spend it, I would definitely have this. But because I don't and I won't, that's what I've got. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, even like little things like organising with swivels instead of a ring.
I just find everything wants a swivel.
Yeah,
because like I've got all of that on the bridge on swivels. The lanyards, both ends of the lanyards are on swivels. Like obviously that system there, that's on swivel, and then obviously there, that's on swivel.
Yeah.
So it's like swivels.
Yeah. You get like it feels like a lot, but you can forget about the system because it sorts itself out.
Yeah.
You're not wasting any time, like I say, passing the system over, unclipping, reclipping, finding that comfortable point, looking at like what the hell's going on with all this rope and crap.
Yeah, people
swivels just. Even on the side strap, it spins around because it's been clipped and hooked, and you wrap it around. All you've got to do is get the carabiner around the tree, clip it in, and pull up slack, and it just undoes itself. Yeah. You still get bites in the line that swivel out, but again, as soon as you unclip it, you let it dangle for a second, it just sorts itself out. Yeah. Because of the swivel again.
Yeah, pretty much,
yeah. Well, and you don't have a silk in your harness.
I do not. I go for the old sawcloth.
Which I think they're wicked, but I just couldn't get around it. I often found myself just being really fast, getting to a position and being like, oh no, I'm strapped in, so I'd have to loosen off or get comfortable.
Do you know, move your leg closer?
Well, but if my right leg is the one holding me in the tree, and then I've got to hold on with all my weight and grab that. It just didn't work for me, just for the way I climb around the tree. Yeah. But I think they're amazing, and it's smart because you're getting another cutting tool away from your fabrics.
Yeah, well, I used to have like my cutting stuff on the same side as my rope.
Yeah,
like before.
Which I think is pretty crazy as how people can't work out to use their left hand for their side strap, even if you're right-handed. But I used it straight away for like a week or two, and it was done.
But I'm left-handed, but I have all my saws on the right.
Well, that's just because of the industry. Chainsaws are meant to be on your right hand.
Yeah.
So.
But then I do find myself chopping and changing bits.
But like stowing and storage, keeping it either side separately. I like to keep stuff minimal on the back or slim on the back. If it's going to flare like a chainsaw, it should be on the sides. Yeah. If I go for a fork, I'm going through sideways. I'm not going through a fork straight on. I'm going sliding through. Yeah. So all my stuff, if it's bulky, it's going side on. End of story. Yeah.
No, see, because the problem with me as a contractor, right, before you look at all of this like shiny stuff, is sometimes companies I work for don't have any kit.
Yep.
So you're like,
I'm gonna bring the camera in.
Okay, this is where it's gonna get like, wow, okay. But some people have kit. Like I turn up to some companies and they have like no pulleys, no nothing, so I have to make do with what.
So we don't need to touch on absolutely everything, but you've got, again,
not throw
you have to have a throw line, and I'm sure you've got a spare.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't have a spare?
No.
Okay.
I used to take two, but then this just fits perfectly in the bag, and I get it first time anyway. So
there we go.
Yeah.
And then you've got a ART snake anchor.
Yeah.
So many uses for that. Again, like you say,
pulleys.
Working for loads of companies, you're not going to always find that they've got everything you need. So pulleys, sort of more redirects. You've got your sort of more
hitch cords in there. This is my new favourite climbing system.
Oh, okay, yep.
This is like like I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't win another giveaway, which is like a Honey Brothers giveaway. But this is like what I would go to now.
That's like, that's the one she tells you not to worry about. and mine's me.
But I can set that up as a hitch climber system straight away, go off, climb, whatever. And then when I want to switch to SRT, I haven't got to do anything. I've just got to
attach,
unchoke that and choke that back on. But even then, I can just clip that to the carabiner that's attached to me, and it's out the way.
Yeah.
Like I haven't got to undo anything.
And then again, just like I was saying, it's quite important not to have stuff on your harness that can only be used for one thing as often as you possible. So Luke's sort of organised and stored everything in a way where he can grab it for the specific jobs.
Yeah, just
If there is like a sole purpose you need it.
redirect options
Yeah.
with carabiners, rings, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, like even just a little cam beam saver for when I want to feel like I'll go back old school.
Yeah.
Climb that.
And yeah, it's well organised, it's tucked away.
Yeah.
And climb line. I'm sure you've got a few. But
Climbing line. What do I climb with? Climb Squire quite a lot. Like
same as mine, the V2.
Yeah, like a lot of cool ropes. I've also climbed a lot with the Lirios.
Yeah, the Lirios.
Like the black and yellow one.
Yeah.
That's like.
That's a bit spongier though, isn't it? Oh, is it? Okay, I'm thinking of the spider.
That's like rock
Or
solid.
Black Widow, sorry.
It's like if you've been climbing that on that all day, you pull it down, you could hold it upright and it won't move.
Really?
And it's like proper static.
Okay.
It's like it's not.
So that's like, again, what we were saying, it's like the far end of a static line
Yeah.
compared to like a double rope.
Yeah. I like you could climb on it double rope, but it's
going to remember.
yeah. Like it does.
Yeah.
It is solid. And then this is my goodie bag, but I don't know if you want to get into that.
Just all the extra bits.
This is it's all the SRT bits and bobs, like foot ascenders,
Yeah.
rope runner, akimbo, knee ascender,
Climbing systems,
yeah,
stairs, repairs, and all the rest.
all the shiny stuff that's just like
But you've got two very, very different but similar ideas of climbing, but different ends of the scale.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think we touched on pretty advanced kit, pretty basic. Good idea of getting into it, progression through kit, and just the all-round necessities and required and not required. So, any questions about any climbing kit?
Your spikes and stuff.
I climb on. Yeah, I'll grab one. I think it's pretty obvious. You're probably going to want a pair of climbing spikes. I climb with the distals. I love distal. I had some distals before these. I got a little bit of money and I thought, you know what, let me treat myself. So I've climbed on these carbon fibre distals for about 6-7 years. The carbon fibre itself is amazing. All the fabrics are slowly falling apart. The Velcro doesn't work, but they're amazing. They both of these is like lighter than like one single aluminium fiberglass spike. It's amazing. I also climb on the big gaffs. I find when I'm spiking down a tree, like an oak, where you've got lots of burrs, like walnuts, things like where it's very burry, sort of lots of basal epicormic growth on stems, lime trees, you don't even think about what you're gaffing into. The only thing is you really do have to think about what you're gaffing into when it comes to like thin barked trees, like like a beech or some conifers. They don't really like to stick into. I find the pros outweigh the cons for me.
Yeah.
Like, I really like having to not think about it when I'm on a big tree, because if I'm on a small tree, I'm probably more worried that the tree's going to snap because of where I'm getting to, or something else is going to go wrong, or wind's going to blow me about. So I'm thinking about my foot positioning more on like a skinny tall tree than I am on like a big broadleaf tree, because they're way more stable and more solid in most scenarios. So I quite like the big gaps. Most people disagree with me. I think they're just unnecessary. But I'm also able to get my feet away from the stem and not have to be so narrow-footed, which just, you could be in a tree for hours. And when you're on like tiny gaffs, I find that I've got a bit more play on say the best scenario species of like an oak tree, or like a chestnut where you're really digging in there, or like a redwood where you can get your spikes in. There isn't a worry about them moving, unsticking. Sometimes they get a bit stuck, but let's say best case scenario, I've got so much more movement in my hips and my knees and my ankles because I've got like a bit more of a pivot point to move around on, whereas those small gaps you are kind of forced to be quite narrow and upright with the tree, or really far and pointed in, whereas I've got from like, you'll often see in the videos, if you really pay attention, I'll have one leg planted to sort of take the main strain, and the other one will be my balance. So I'll be cutting and I'll have like one upright, because I can almost touch the tree with my knee to kind of stop me from swiveling, moving, and really balance myself. And because I've got bad knee, I can swap between the both, changing sides depending on the way the tree's growing, the burrs, the lean, the cut, whatever I'm doing. and I feel like the big gaffs help. I don't think the necessity of having the big gaffs, the standards just work fine.
Yeah.
But they're
I
like
can't
60
big
quid
gaffs.
extra. You can't big gaffs?
Yeah.
There we go. Get big gaffs. They're the best way to do it.
Yeah, I do that.
But I think that's pretty much our careers, our kit, progression, importance of social media, and yeah, where we're kind of leading our careers on from there. So,
And a very short video.
thanks for joining me. I've been the Real Tree Guy, and this has been Luke from Armspace.
Yeah.
Plug yourself. Where can they find you?
I mean, they can find me in the description.
They can find it just his YouTube in the
Just
description,
mine.
because that's too much effort to work out how to add other links. But
Yeah.
you can find his YouTube, which will have all his links in. But
Yeah. And Instagram.
it's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all
Armspace, ARBSPACE.
Yeah.
No dots, no lines, no underscores. And that's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, do have a website, but a website's like.
Check him out on his website.
Yeah,
It doesn't give much use
doesn't do it.
Thanks for joining me. I've been the Real Tree Guy, and thanks for watching. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I shall see you in the morning.